Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk About Human Rights, the show in which we discuss all things related to human rights. I'm your host, Jules Allender, and I'm part of the California chapter of Youth for Human Rights International. Youth for Human Rights International's purpose is to enlighten and educate people around the world on what their human rights are, with specific focus on the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And with this education, to enable and inspire the youth of today as our leaders of tomorrow to stand up and secure these rights for themselves and all people on earth. For each show, we like to take up one right and try to broaden your understanding of how this right is important to you and your loved ones. And for today's show, we will be looking at human right number 7, which says, all are equal before the law and are entitled without discrimination to equal protection of the law. All are entitled to equal protection against any discrimination in violation of this declaration and against any incitement to such discrimination. Now let's take a look at a short video about this specific human right.
Different words describe different people. But in the eyes of the law, there's one that fits us all. Human right number 7. We're all equal before the law. What are human rights? Find out at youthforhumanrights.org.
All right, let's examine these ideas a little more closely. What is this saying? It is saying that the law is the same for everyone. It must treat us all fairly. Whenever people live together in groups, towns, or communities, there has to be a set of agreements that everyone adheres to. These agreements come from the experiences of the group usually. Most good laws come from a past experience that proved to be detrimental to the community. And as the group evolves into a society, these agreements get codified and made into laws. There are many different types of laws: immigration laws, civil laws, criminal laws. This is only a few, and there is a very long list. Once you have these laws, what do you do if someone breaks one? Well, there are two separate definitions for the term law. One is a body of rules of conduct of binding legal force and effect, prescribed, recognized, and enforced by controlling authority, as in, which law did I break? Another is the authority that enforces the law, as in, the law will be here soon. Here the word law refers to the controlling authority appointed to enforce the rules. In this second definition, we're talking about people. In a society, certain people are chosen to enforce the laws that the community has decided upon. Commonly, we call these people police, prosecutors, and judges, and as a group, the justice system. But since they are people, they can have a prejudice or a personal opinion about you or a group that you belong to. They could not like the way you are dressed or even your age. Or even worse, they could be bigoted against you because of your race, religion, or gender. And one of the primary responsibilities in a just society is for the law, the enforcement group, to apply the law to everyone in the same way. No one gets special treatment, and all the rules apply to everyone equally. It is said that in the law's eyes, there is no race, gender, or age. There is just the law. This also means when laws are written, they have to be written in a manner that does not in any way treat some people differently. So there's a third group that has a responsibility to the people. Those people who write the laws commonly are known as legislators. So a fair law starts with the legislators of a country writing the law in a manner so it can be applied fairly. A law written fairly is one that the community can understand and agree with and can be applied equally to all members of the society. The police, the prosecutors, and the judges don't get to decide. These kinds of laws applied in this manner gives a society a feeling of equality before the law. The principle of equal protection before the law, as enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, is a cornerstone of justice, fairness, and human dignity. It serves as a powerful tool to combat discrimination, promote inclusivity, and strengthen human rights. Upholding this principle requires continuous efforts from governments, institutions, and individuals to create a society where all treated equitably, irrespective of their differences. Embracing this principle contributes to the realization of a more just and harmonious world. And my guest today is Opal Singleton Hendershot. She is the president and CEO of Million Kids. Million Kids is all about prevention and intervention combating child sex trafficking and online social media exploitation. She has worked tirelessly since 2008 to educate and inform community leaders, law enforcement, and parents of the risk of their child being exploited over the internet. Her presentations have reached over 750,000 people already, and she is the author of 2 books, with a third about to be published. And with that, I would like to welcome Opal to the show. Hi, Opal.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, Jules.
Thank you so much for being here, and we haven't even begun to hear about your work, but in advance, I'm going to thank you for your work against such a horrifying crime that continues to happen. So thank you.
Well, I'll tell you, it's the kind of thing, once you see it, you can't walk away. So it's a drive for me every day. So
I can totally understand. So let's start off by just giving us a summation of what it is you do and how you do it.
Well, Million Kids is a little bit different than a lot of organizations in that we're not a victim service provider, but we are all about prevention and intervention, especially sex trafficking. But right now we're heavily focused on online social media exploitation. So I myself am a post-certified law enforcement trainer. So I've trained a lot of first responders, law enforcement, fire department, even code enforcement, but also a huge amount of parents and schools, especially on the subject of online exploitation. And that is really where it's at today, that we have a huge issue going on in global online exploitation that will just kind of rock your world once you understand it. So Million Kids is made up of about 8 people. We're loosely connected. We call ourselves seasoned professionals. We've been around a while. But we study every case that you can find about sex trafficking, gang trafficking, cartel trafficking, social media exploitation, CSAM, which was previously known as child pornography, and the dark web, bulletproof hosting, money laundering of cartels. And we educate organizations across the nation. It is hard to stay on top of it because of artificial intelligence and the things going on in technology. So that's really the role that we play. And it takes every one of us to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start and really take a look, and if you can really break down for us what online exploitation actually is, and then we'll get into, I know you recently did a podcast on deep fakes in terms of AI, and I want to get into that as well, but just really lay out for us what online exploitation is in regards to children.
Okay. Well, the bulk of what we do is related to minors, anyone under the age of 18. And online exploitation has changed dramatically over the last 15 years. I contend that most parents and most young people are still thinking that we're back about 7-8 years ago. The last 3 years, especially even 4 years, it has changed dramatically. So historically, what would happen is you have a young person that is maybe playing around online, and they send a nude. 1 out of 6 boys, 1 out of 7 girls have sent a nude online. Quite frankly, that has got to stop in this day and age. Cannot happen. But historically, they would send a nude online, and it was kind of a game kind of thing. But they also would be individual predators that would go out and meet kids online, trying to get a nude out of them. And those predators were often part of a large ring of other pedophiles that would share that photo once they got it in the dark web and like that. But in the last 3 years, it's changed dramatically. And it has to do with the change in technology. For one thing, in about 2022-23, the entire world connected with internet. Jules, I want your audience to understand how powerful that is and what that means. That means that literally 5 billion people came together around the world, and anyone in the world can reach your child, and your child can reach anyone. This is the first generation in all of history that's ever happened, and it changed the world.
And I want you to continue, but I just want to, what changed in order to allow that to happen?
Well, as developing countries got high-speed internet, and it wasn't just that they went online. Mm-hmm. They got high speed, the same kind of thing we do, that can enable artificial intelligence, it can enable money transfer, it can enable geolocation software. And with AI, they can use any kind of technology and alter your image. I contend every one of us at one point will become a victim of a deep fake. A deep fake is they take my head and put some sexual body on it and try to blackmail me. And I always tell my husband, if they're going to do that to me, I want to be young, thin, and cute. we had someone in the station make a deep fake of me with long hair going on, And my husband's going, where do I find that girl? But the technology is here, and I'm not against technology.
Sure.
It can be really good or really bad. But the problem is, if we don't understand how it's going to be used against us, we can't prepare this generation of young people to protect themselves.
Right. Good. So we had the U.S. and maybe its surrounding countries who had access to very high-speed internet, and then over the last couple of years, other nations, maybe nations we weren't expecting to, where predators may lie a little deeper, or there may be more of predators. Because if we do know, this is a topic that there's a lot of organizations around. So we've had a number of organizations on in the area of child sex trafficking and child pornography material. So we do know that the U.S. is the number one consumer of child pornography, or I know there's another word for it that it's
DSAM, child sexual abuse material.
There you go. Good. So, but it doesn't necessarily, it's not necessarily being created in the U.S.
Right.
Right. So with what you said, so let's say I have a child, a 12-year-old child, and she sends a nude of some sort, whether that's a top or a bottom or a hole. And this can be through gaming devices, that's correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Social media, so Instagram, X, TikTok,
right.
Snapchat, which it disappears, which is a whole other, right? So then that individual who is receiving this, they have access, but am I correct when I say not only do they have access, but others can access that nude as well?
They can, but there's something much more insidious going on that let me describe it so that your viewers can really appreciate, because this is a human rights show, and this is one of the greatest violations of human rights I've ever seen. So there's actually in this crime 2 sets of victims, because what is happening here is, let's say that you're in Nigeria or Pakistan or Myanmar. You now have 5G high-speed internet, but those are very poor countries. So the cartels will lure people in from other countries, including your own country, thinking you're going to get a job, Think about this. They're very poor people. And these cartels have learned that if you do this right, you can make millions off of US kids. By the way, it's also UK kids and Australian kids. But what they will do is pretend to be an employer, and they will attract people in from all over developing countries. They think they're going for a real job. Okay. When they get there, they get kidnapped. Let's say you're from India and you go to Thailand and you think you're going to get a real job. Once you get to Thailand, they will kidnap you and take you to Myanmar. And they will hold you in a farm called a scam farm. And if your people really want to see the reality of this, I encourage you to go on YouTube and look up scam farms.
Scam, like SCAM?
That's right, scam farms, or they can be cyber scam farms, either one. Myanmar is like huge. Myanmar is the old Burma that's caught between Thailand and Cambodia. And so they will hold these people out there. Just recently, the UN believed that in Myanmar alone, there's over 30,000 people that are being trafficked there, being held against their will. But their role is to seduce our kids. And these people can't get free, and they have quotas. Their goal is to get a nude out of one of our kids so they can blackmail them. So you have the victim in America, but you also have the victim that's being forced to do this dirty work to blackmail our child. And it's, I myself, until I really got into this and started looking at all these YouTubes and listening to the cases and listening to reports of Interpol and Europol, I had no idea how big this is. And so what happens is that they will pretend to be a 14-year-old girl. They have quotas. They don't have a choice. They have got to get that photo out of your child. And so they'll catch your child at a weak moment. Okay, maybe they're just hormonal, maybe they're in a fight with their girlfriend, maybe they're in a fight with you, whatever it is. They'll catch them in a weak moment. And these are kids that are fabulous kids. You know, they are not kids on the edge. These are super achiever kids who have already planned to go to college. They homecoming kings and like that. More boys than girls in this case. And they will focus in on, once that kid sends a nude, it leaves the telemarketing center and goes to the cartel. And that's done almost instantaneously. They obviously do it electronically. Once that kid is sent a nude, their life changes dramatically. So if you move from the telemarketing to what it's like to be a victim on this end, you all of a sudden have a 14-year-old boy, one of them out of Idaho. He received over 1,000 texts threatening him within a 24-hour period. These people are absolutely vicious. The kid will say, I'm going to kill myself. They say, go right ahead. You're a dead man. And they will show your nude photo along with your list of your Instagram followers and your list of your TikTok followers, because that's all public. Anybody can get those lists. And this kid just panics. The one that just happened, and so we've had at this point 42 young people take their lives, and this is only 2 were girls, the rest were young males. One a couple of weeks ago was out of El Dorado, Kansas, 14 years old, never been in trouble, great kid. And it was 35 minutes between the time he sent the nude and he decided that he had no way out.
Oh my God.
And so the thing that I'm saying here is, this is a conversation. We can work on this. This is not like COVID where you have to develop some sort of vaccine. This is a conversation. The predator changed, the format changed, and the price you're going to pay is changing. And I think that we have to back up and make sure everybody understands this. We need PSAs all over the place so that everyone understands. Imagine losing your child to a telemarketing scam out of Nigeria somewhere. You know, we got to tell the story. And that's why my next book is called Digital Warfare, Our Kids on the Front Line. Because as long as you're on that front line, you're now in a globally connected world. It is no longer like it used to be. And we need to define that for our kids and our parents so that they can learn to protect themselves. Jules, what's so important here is we're just getting started. This is the first generation in all of history that can reach that world, but that world can reach them. How we train this generation of kids is going to set the stage for all future generations.
Right.
This is not, it's like inventing the car. It's not, there's no going back. We got to prepare this generation to live in this big global world and understand what the enemy looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a horrifying, the results of what happens. I want to just ask a couple follow-up questions. So I'm assuming what the cartel wants from them is money.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can't give them enough to make them stop.
So if I pay them once, so let's say they ask for $10,000, I pay them once, it's just going to continue. They're going to want more and more money.
Yeah. I have a movie out that was actually done by Stephen Peake and Marsha Peake. Anyway, it's called Sextortion, the Hidden Pandemic. Now, this does not address this. This movie was made a couple of years ago, about 3 years ago now. But, and I highly recommend people see it, by the way, Sextortion, the Hidden Pandemic. It's on Amazon, iTunes, and Apple TV. But the reason that that movie is so important is we show it at various organizations around the world, around the United States. Recently, a young man had paid over $8,000, and he came to that movie, and then he went and reported. He realized finally that if $8,000 is going to get his way out, he doesn't have a way out. So he finally reported. But we need to teach kids to report from the very first moment. Not only will it help them, but you can save literally thousands of other kids. You are not their only victim.
Right. Right. Yeah. And so I just want to just kind of sum up what you said in terms of how it works and who the victims are. So you have a cartel recruits somebody through a fake employment agency, through who these individuals are coming from poorer countries, right? So they come and they go wherever they go. They are then kidnapped, basically trafficked to work. And their job is to lure and to get minors to send nudes to them through gaming and social media, things of that nature. And once that nude is sent, the telemarketing company, I think that you phrase that brilliantly because it is what it is, then sends that picture to the cartel then contacts that individual, and now they're being blackmailed.
Right. And their life becomes living hell. It really is an amazing. I've read every one of those 40 cases and listened to the parents. And I say to myself, we can take this on. We don't need anything unique for it. This is a conversation. We need to educate the public. Now, I am going to try to take it on legally, okay? From a standpoint, I'm asking tech companies and I'm asking legislators to get tech companies to have a flashing sign on your screen that says offshore. If this communication is coming from outside the U.S., this is important because these people not only trick our kids, they trick our older people in romance scams. They do cryptocurrency scams. So if I can get the tech companies to start flashing offshore on anything that originated offshore, at least maybe somebody would stop and think, before they go any further. This might not be the 14-year-old down the street you think it is because it's coming from offshore. That's a start. But I also think that we need the government and every agency in America to take this on. Let me get you educated. That's what we do. Train you so that you can go tell others. Our organization's this big, okay? We're not I never wanted to be a big corporation, but we're mighty in that we reach literally millions of people. And that's what it's all about, is let us teach you how this works so that you can teach young people. This ought to be in schools. I mean, let's face it, most of your victims are students, are school-age kids. And in some ways, it's like active shooter because you're allowing cartels to come in and they have specialized software on it, but anybody can get through anywhere. So this is really related to school age kids. And I believe we've got to get the parents to like come out of their shell and understand what's happening and have that conversation with their kids. I say that this is something where we no longer can just go, you be careful on that thing now. If you put a young person online, they need to understand the world they're living in because it's not like the world was 3 years ago.
Right.
And we need a program to do that.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you 100%, and I think it's vital information. What I want to ask you to do is, because I think it's, when you say it's different from 3 years ago, I think if we go back 3, 5, 10 years, and we're talking about child sex trafficking or things of this nature, we're talking about at-risk youth mainly, right? And that this has completely changed the conversation. And so I think to a degree it's hard for parents or individuals to go, yeah, not my scene, not going to happen to me. And so if you're able to, like, when you say that it makes their life a living hell, I just want you to paint that picture for us so that parents and children can know what the effect is going to be.
Right. Well, Jules, you're so right in what you're saying, in that when I work with sex trafficking, it is often the people that are on the edge that have had a tough life and like that. When you read these stories of these kids that got trapped in this, it just tears your heart out. I mean, these kids are, homecoming kings and like that. When I talk to, a lot of times I'll talk to faith-based people, or I'll talk to schools or even private schools. They'll go, well, we don't have that problem because our kids are good kids, and they would never do that. Every one of those kids and those victims were great kids. I mean, they all had plans. They had picked out their college, or they were homecoming kings, or they're sports stars, or whatever. And I do think that's part of the problem, is that they show that nude and they showed everybody they know. And it brings the kid from way up here all of a sudden realize his life is crashing down. We've got to come out of the shell with kids, parents and kids. When I work with these cases, they think, oh, my kid's a good kid. It's not going to happen to them. Or, Mom, I'll know if I'm being catfished. Not one of you will recognize. Here's where I think we need to come back to. I think we need an education program. We need documentaries that say, what's it like when you live in a world connected to 5 billion people? And who are those people? All it takes is one for them to reach your child and pretend to be somebody else. It is absolutely gut-wrenching once this goes wrong. The kid just panics. They see themselves, that nude's going to be out there. Now, the truth is, we're this close to it being a global disaster, because the truth is, with deep fakes and artificial intelligence, your child won't have to send a nude. And I've already seen these cases where they go, Mom, okay, that's not me. Okay, that's my head, but that's not me. But they're being bullied at school because it looks like them. Well, so we have to have these hard conversations right now. And it's got to start with the parent, by the way. It is no longer, it's an agreement between the parent and the child. I want you to understand what is happening out there and who might be on the other end of that good-looking photo you're about to get, and what's going to happen if it is. And then I think we have an agreement that should you become a victim, don't do anything crazy. Trust me enough to come to me. I'm not going to take your phone. It's going to take both of us. But if we report this, we can save other kids. Right. You're not the only victim. And I do believe that it's going to change the dialogue right up front in schools and at home, in faith-based settings, or in any kind of civic organization. We ought to be talking about this, because this is the next generation of leaders that's on the front line here.
Right. And when you talk to parents, do you find that they're receptive to what you're saying?
Once you explain it to them, if you just go in there and they think, oh, you're against technology, nothing could be further from the truth. Once they understand, and this is why I'm writing my book, once they understand the world changed, not only did the world become globally connected right after COVID, okay, but you also have money transfer. I mean, we've all heard about these scams with grandma where she has to go to the Target and get a gift card. Every kid now knows how to do Venmo. They know how to do gift cards online. That is part of it. Not only is it globally connected, but they have money transfer. They have geolocation software. I saw a case where a kid wanted an alternative lifestyle. He was about 12. And he didn't want to tell mom and dad. So he went on Grindr. Grindr is an LGBTQ dating site. And guess what? It says right on there, I'm only 4 miles away, because you have geolocation software. They know exactly where you live. In one of these, and by the way, that guy would say to him, hey, I'm only 4 miles away. You don't have to tell your folks, let me meet up with you. I'll mentor you. But on top of it, we had one of these cases. They said, Mom, they knew everything about us. They had a picture of our house. They were on Zillow. They had a picture of his room because they had listed their house or just bought their house. They had a picture of mom and where she worked. So you have all of these technologies that come together at the same time as artificial intelligence. They can alter the way that they look to you, the person, completely, and they can alter all the other things about you. But with artificial intelligence, all they have to do is get one photo of you, and your life can change dramatically if you don't learn to report. And most kids won't report. One of the things I didn't share with you, Jules, and I really feel the need to share. Last year, NCMEC, National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, took over 30 million reports. There is not enough investigation in the world to investigate 30 million reports.
Is that nationally or is that worldwide?
And that's worldwide, but mostly in the
Still,
US.
It's a lot, yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what was scary is that 84% of those reports ended up resolving offshore. That's how big this. And people don't understand the magnitude of what is going on here.
Yeah.
And so once you start to understand that, and that number gets even more frightening because about 24 million of those reports came from some ESP service providers like Meta, Facebook, and Instagram, but only 15% of the service providers actually reported. So think about this. The UN says that at least 60 countries now are involved in scam farms. Just wait until all the other developing countries get into it. And if only 15% of the people reported of those service providers, this thing is a ticking time bomb.
Oh my gosh.
It's changed our society completely, and yet I don't hear anybody talking about it.
That was going to be my next question is why don't you think this is getting any media coverage or it's being talked about at the state, federal level in terms of our children?
I probably went a little too far by nobody's talking about it. There are people. Okay, I get excited, sorry. But for instance, the Take It Down law, that was a bipartisan law. Thank God for that. It's not an end-all, see-all. It'll get us started. But what that law did is they penalize those service providers for not reporting. Okay, that's a start. And number two, if you keep that photo, and that's one of the things you need to know, even if you sent that photo, you're still a victim, even if you sent the photo, but keep that photo. I know it's embarrassing, but they need that to be able to get it off the internet.
Oh, I got it.
One of the stories I looked at is one girl's photo was looked at over 600 million times in the darknet. And so you have to understand, once that photo goes out there, you're never really ever getting it back. And so we need to understand all this. So the government has started with the Take It Down Act. That's a start in the right direction. I think getting them to say offshore is something. Somehow we need safe haven in a school, because if you're a victim of a deep fake, you get bullied. You
Right.
know, even the gangs and other people in schools have learned. There was a case in Beverly Hills where five eighth graders got into the nudify sites and they were making nudes of all the girls in their classroom. First of all, that's against the law, so we need to teach that. But second of all, I say to myself, nudify sites, you know, what is this? And it turns out there's 60 of them.
And
One of them
can you
has
explain
20.
what those are? Like, what is a
It's
nudify
that
site?
software that is housed offshore so they don't follow under our laws. See, this is one of the things most people don't realize. The internet is a worldwide thing, and we can pass laws, but all you have to do is go to Romania, Albania, Russia, China, Iceland, and they will allow you to put anything on there, which is where all your sex ads and your webcam sex and stuff housed. These kids went on and found nudify sites and using them, and any person can do it. It is against the law, and we need to start to change the education to the kids. To okay, this may seem like a good time to you, but your life's going to change if you do it. We also need to put some sort of fine or something to be able to reach offshore companies. But
Yeah.
that's harder than you realize.
Yeah,
Where we
yeah.
have to start today is education at home. Parents and kids, they need to understand the world they live in.
Totally. And why do you think kids don't want to report?
Oh, because they're going to lose their phone, they think.
Oh my God.
But it's more than that. You know,
Okay.
you think about it, you know, you're the homecoming king, and now your nude is all over the world. Yeah, and it's humiliating, it's embarrassing, it's a life changer. And that is one of the things that many kids have fought for in training law enforcement and first responders and parents everywhere is you need to understand, you know, for years I say, go to your school resource officer and report. Well, the SRO will go, what the heck were you thinking? Why'd you send the nude? You know, and it is true that the victim is also uh, responsible for part of it because they sent the nude. Now you won't have to send the nude, you have the deep fake.
Right.
But it's a life-changing thing once that's on there. Because if you have a nude online, you apply for a job, you try to get in a school, you try to get in the military, you have a new boyfriend or girlfriend, you meet their parents, they do a background check. Your life has changed once that's on there. And that's one of the discussions every parent ought to understand. But the truth is, with deep fakes, it can be anybody in the future. So we have to change our attitude about this.
And yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Continue.
I just want to get back to the fact that this is a human rights issue. Of course, we all make mistakes, but we also need to understand that in this case, the perpetrator is also the victim, and somewhere in a faraway country is a faceless human being that is also being trafficked. And that's as tragic as what's happening in our lives. So this is a double whammy when it comes to human rights. As you look at this, we've got to find a way to make countries go after those sites in their country, even if they're not part of Interpol or Europol or one of those organizations. They need to also be held responsible for human rights and free those people. It'll be harder for the reason they're taking in thousands is they can go through so many names and keep trying to find a kid who will send a photo. And that's hard work. Cartels don't want to do it. So they're enslaving people to do it.
Right.
But we also have to understand with our kids that number one, don't send a nude. But number two, even if you're a victim, you still have rights, and we need people to care for you and assist you, not reject you and make it so that you can't go forward with your life.
Right.
All of us make a mistake. Now, I haven't sent a nude, but you know, but I've made my own mistakes, okay? And I'm saying that we need a different heart, and we need a whole lot of education, and we need government and moms and dads and schools and everybody we can get to come together and make this a number one issue. To lose another child to a Nigerian telemarketing company is insane.
Right. Right.
Because we didn't have the conversation.
Yeah. I do want to acknowledge the fact that it is a human right on multiple levels, right? You have slavery, you have the right to privacy, security, you have the right to life, right? You have freedom of expression, freedom of thought. All of these things are being violated.
Yeah.
And so they are human rights violations. And we have an agreed upon document, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And so, yes, these organizations and these groups need to be held, they need to be gone after. It's just, and I don't know what the situation stands in different countries, if, they just are unaware or they don't want to be aware. But you're absolutely correct. So if we just take a look at and lay out in terms of, what needs to be done. One question I did want to ask is, so you had made mention, like, if my nude ends up online and I go and I apply for a job or dating someone and they are going to do a background check on me or try to get into the military, is it that when they search my name, that nude may come up? Is that how it works? Or what is the effect if I'm not being directly blackmailed by someone else?
Yeah, you never know how it's going to come up. The problem with it, the nudes online, first of all, there are literally millions of them, as we have found. Just in 15% of the reporting, it was something like 24 million. Jeez. Just with like 3 main service providers. So you never know quite how this is going to come out on you. But anytime you have a nude online, you're in danger. And whether you put it online yourself, or someone created it, or someone modified one, or you in fact sent it and they put it on there. Anytime that's on there, you've got a challenge going, and you can't get them back. I mean, literally, what happens, even with the Take It Down Act, you need the original image, and that's something I should end this with so that you know. Parents, let me just say this right off the bat. If your child's a victim, first of all, don't go on and tell that pedophile, you lousy, blah, 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 leave my kid alone. Don't do that. We don't want to alert them that you know. Number 2, do not delete the photo. I know they're hard to look at, but don't delete them, because you can use that photo to match on the Take It Down Act. Now, these guys are pretty good. They get a photo online, they'll AI modify it, and then your match won't match anymore, and it may still be going, but you can get the original back. If you have that photo, do not show that to everybody. That's your child's dignity. And then what you do, and don't scream and yell at your child. You do this together. Look, this is the hardest thing we've ever been through. But you and I are going to take your phone. I'm not taking it from you, but we're going to go to law enforcement and let them stand in for you. Now, do they charge the perpetrators in Nigeria? Interesting enough, the Jordan DeMay case, now there was a person connected to that in Los Angeles, but they did arrest and extradite 2 people from Nigeria in the Jordan DeMay case. But in the Ivory Coast and some of these others, we don't have an extradition agreement. So sometimes they're charged and sometimes they're not. But it's important, parents, that you keep your head together. Don't shame your child. Help them work through it. And then don't alert them, and get to your cyber crimes unit, wherever it's at in your law enforcement. Maybe your child can save thousands of other children. Absolutely. And then have the dialogue, and everybody gets counseling. This is a life-changing event. So many people in sextortion think, well, you sent the photo, what were you thinking? And it's all over. No, your life will never be the same. And the life of your family. I counsel families, and it's especially hard on a father if you have a daughter involved. But we need to understand this is a real crime, even if your child participated.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and thank you for laying that out for every parent, and we will ensure that, that information gets disseminated, because it's vastly, incredibly important. So I want to thank you not only for your time here today, we're honored to have you, but for all that you do. I mean, you have a tremendous amount of information. It's an incredibly important topic. And if someone wanted to potentially get a hold of you, how would they get a hold of your organization?
Just go to Opal, OPAL. My husband bought me this beautiful opal so I don't forget. Anyway, OPAL. It's either a nice stone or a lousy guard. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, OPAL at millionkids.org. And that message will get to me.
Great. Thank you. And then we ask every guest a final question here, and that is, what is your favorite human right and why?
Oh, the right to be free of slavery. Just because they have technology now, they're using that technology to enslave millions more people than we could have ever imagined because they've reached them through technology. And we all have a right to be free, regardless of if we make a mistake by applying the wrong way or whatever. We all have a right to be free. And that's mine. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jules. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Well, that's our show for this week. I hope you enjoyed what Opal had to share with us today, took it to heart, and learned a tremendous amount about how to protect not only your children, but others' children, and what needs to be done in a world where we are incredibly connected to every country and to individuals who are actually evil. As always, we're always looking for guests. So if you have an interesting story or know someone who should be on the show, definitely reach out to us. We have wonderful videos in 17 language on Youth for Human Rights International website. And as always, I appreciate your time. And until next time, I'll see you.